Ectosage here on the Sage channel is Sleep, Art, Game, and Eat. And today a big old patch came out that has added some really damn awesome stuff. First of which, if you look in the bottom right corner down there, you can see we have a 64-bit version of the game now. Big time awesome. I might have just bumped my mic. It was that awesome. Largest and latest stuff, well, greatest and latest stuff, is also that in front of me. You see this spinning? That's not using the old way, is where you get a ship spinning and then disable the gyros. This is actually a motor down there at the bottom. You can barely see it. And basically, if you want to set one of these up, you basically build a ship. Actually, I'll do it right out here really quickly and show you how it works. Basically, build any of these, even the small ships. These motors work on small ships, large ships, and stations. So let's actually start with the stations, the easiest to show. We're going to put the motor on top. Now, of course, this motor will not work unless it's powered. So we're going to go down here. We're going to get ourselves a small reactor. We're going to plop this reactor on here, just that it's connected to the whole setup. You cannot actually, you can directly connect it to that, which means we could have had a very funky setup of just these two things floating there, but we're not going to do that. And then, of course, you can build whatever you like on that. Now, anything, even though we started out with a station down here, anything built on top of the motor is going to count as a ship. So when we go down here, and we turn this thing on by going up to this where it has an axis thing, pressing K, bringing us into the control system, go to the motor. We can do that to make it turn left. We can do that to turn it right. We turn it on, and you see this up here is spinning. Even though it was connected to a station, it has become a spaceship. It was a spaceship, or a large ship, since the second we put down that first block. Basically, this piece here, the motor, acts sort of as a double thing, where the bottom is attached like any other block, and the top piece is actually sort of attached to something else. That's at least how it seems to work, because if I fly back in here and I show you what happens if something gets in its way and causes it to collide, they usually have a bit of trouble. Now let's see, can we get this to, there we go. There we go, it hit, and because I've mirrored everything, it didn't quite do what I wanted it to do, but usually what happens is when this spinning thing hits something, it actually shears off and it'll start floating up. But the little middle piece here will break free. Now actually, if we fly about around here, when we remove these pieces, it's not going to start spinning up again. And the reason is because, actually it might, oh no it is, okay. Sometimes I've noticed in the past when these things actually hit other things, the motors automatically shut off. And I've also noticed during saving and restarting, sometimes it seems like the motors forget what they were doing. But if we put this down here, there we go. It hit it, sort of bounced up, hit there, collision, and you see it has now severed itself from the bottom piece here. And you see this is still attached to the base, but this sort of dolly or whatever you want to call it has pulled out of there, and the whole thing is now free floating. If we fly out here now, I can show you some of the other stuff that I have set up to demonstrate things. You can see here we have a station spinning right here, basically like I just set up on the other side, and then a large thing up here. Now, naturally, even if I was to go down here and hop into this control setup, go to the motor and turn it off, that thing will actually keep spinning. The only way to stop one of these spinning is to hop into its controls or somehow access its control system, hop in here, and turn on gyroscopes. So anything you want to be able to stop from spinning, you'll usually want gyroscopes. Now I have noticed in the past some things seem to stop spinning on their own. Those I originally actually thought they stopped spinning on their own, but upon further examination you can very clearly see they actually intersected with each other, and if I turn it back on, they'll pretty much tear each other to pieces. Now if we were to fly over here again to this, even though we have the gyroscopes on and stuff now, if that motor was on, it would still turn very, very slowly. And also, because this is connected to a station, when I try to move this, it cannot move the station. Now, if it was connected to a small ship, that small ship would get pulled along with this. And actually, if that wasn't a station down there and was actually a small ship, which I might actually be able to set up, I haven't actually tested this, but let's remove this, let's put it back down, and I think this might have actually turned it into a station now. We'll find out in a second, or not a station, but a small ship. If we hop back in here and we try to move, nope, still counts as a station. But if it was a small ship, this one could pull this one around, and if this motor was on, this small piece would be spinning on its own, while this piece would be held stable by the gyroscopes. So even though the motor is first connected here and then to that one up there, that doesn't mean that you have to spin just the piece on top. Very clever work of that. Now that thing way over there in the distance, By the way, I'll get to this stuff to my right in a second. But this thing over here is actually basically 2 stations. So I started out with that same thing I had before and then built the top, but when I turned it on, it tried to turn, this motor tried to turn the top, but of course ended up spinning itself as well. We ended up with this sort of both pieces spinning interesting thing, and then I stuck engines on and then flew it out here. Also, because these count as large ships, you can of course have your lovely big landing gears on whatever you like and grapple stuff and all sorts of other clever things. So things are getting more and more advanced as we go along. That big spinning double X thing over there is basically a station in the middle, if I can get back into view of it. There we go, a station in the middle, keeping everything stable, and then these 2 big ships on the side spinning about. And one of my ideas that I had, that I didn't actually build, is the idea that you could use one of these ships as a slingshot, basically having its own power supply to power a landing gear, control stuff, hook up an asteroid on that landing gear, a small one of course, that you've mined, and then you could let go and fling it wherever you like a catapult. Now this thing over here is basically to show some of the nonsensical fun physics you get when you go flying about with a bunch of these around. So let's hop in here really quickly, and now you can see I'm going to start accelerating. You'll watch as sort of everything gets pulled back, because of course their mass is sort of sitting there. As you go forward, they get slung backwards, and you see that very, very cool. If I stop, they carry on forwards. It's very cool, very, very cool. Now, be warned, if you turn too quickly with a setup like this where they're going out so far, have multitudes of them, they're all sort of torquing and getting pulled in the other ways. You can easily, if I can just turn, yep, there we go. You can easily shear pieces off, so you got to be careful with this. Also, you can, of course, turn each of these motors on top with each, so you'll have motor connected to the ship, connected to motor, connected to the ship, so on and so forth, and you can have ridiculous amounts of spinning fun, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm turning on the motors that are connected to the base ship that I'm in right now. So now you can see these things are spinning not because of the original force that I put into them, but because now the motors right there are actually spinning. Now, of course, I could fly up to this control panel here, hop into this, take this motor and decide, hey, you should be on too. And now you can see it's going to start a counter, and it's trying to spin its own way now as the bottom one's spinning another way. You can end up with some insane, crazy, funny stuff. These over here, of course, are lights, and I have a generator to power them because, as you've probably figured out, even though I didn't directly say it, energy does not flow through motors. Each thing connects to a completely separate ship, so they have to have their own power supply in there. I think that's about it. Really quickly, I'm going to go over the patch notes. The features are that we have a 64-bit version of the game now, of course, large and small motor blocks that I've just been going over, improved performance for floating objects, which are like the things that you drop. So let's say if I was to go in here and say, I don't want that, or this, or that, well, now these floating objects have their own sort of, well, improved physics. And for some reason they're going that way. I guess it was because I was probably moving that way when I dropped them. They've also improved performance for collisions, which is pretty nice. I haven't really noticed too much of a difference, but I haven't been colliding too many things besides these new motor stuff, which has caught me off guard a bit. And they've updated localization. Oh, and they have hide rotation hints is now possible, which is that thing at the top right, I believe. You can now hide that if you like. Ooh, that was the wrong button. What else do we have? We have fixes. So keys for symmetry mode can now be assigned, which is M and N. You can now assign the symmetry mode stuff that you usually are stuck with to whatever bloody button you like. So in can no longer be your toggle if you don't want it. It can be whatever bloody button you damn well please. Also, they fixed front part handle missing on ground. So basically, this is where this seemed to always be missing and nonsense like that, and it looks like it's more closer to the center of the screen in first person too. Very nice fix there. Ship drill is now correctly centered, which is, if you remember, on small ships, the drills, if I can really quickly just toss one in here, they always looked a bit off kilter. Not the whole drill itself, but the actual drill head and that center point right there, they didn't always look like they're in the center. And this one actually looks a bit off to the left, but it's definitely more centered than they were before. So that's very cool. And of course, it's probably mathematically correct to spin the right way now and all sorts of nonsense. What else do we have? We have fixed broken small ship collision. I think what they mean by that is basically in the past, well, at least shown in my last video, you could take a small ship, a pretty sturdy little one, and basically ram it and go straight through any big ship. I'm pretty sure they fixed that now. We also have fixed drill shadow. Apparently it was a little bit borked. fixed ladder view issues. I remember hearing some people complaining about view issues on the ladder. And then we also have some fixes they actually did to this update, because apparently they had some issues. They have fixed collision issue on 64-bit version, fixed a startup error, fixed motor collision shape, because apparently it wasn't the best in the world. That's possibly why, before I really started recording this, there was some issues I had with the drill pieces, especially things like that, where in the past, if I had put in that little block down there, hit it, it would sort of explode and tear up the whole area down there. It was pretty cool, but didn't make much sense. I think it's part of what they might have changed. And again, that's only just possibly part. Also, they have a note there. So if you're having trouble starting up the game, and it just sort of crashes on startup, they have a reason behind that. It has to do with, what is this thing called? They have Visual Studio Redist through, I don't know. It's nonsensely confusing, but if you're having trouble starting up the game, head over to their official forums. I'll have a link in the description so you can go over there and see if they can help you out. Now, when I say I will have a link, it'll actually be to their patch notes, so if you want to look at all this yourself and read through anything else there and download these fixes that they have for that startup issue, it's all going to be down in the description to link you to their proper place. Anyway, thanks a bunch for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. I think it's going to change a lot of stuff. I'm having new ideas for how to build ships with motors, as long as they don't shear each other apart, like I had on that other ship over there. Anyway, thanks a bunch for watching. I'll see you guys next time.